He told me I was nothing, stood right in front of me, his eyes cold as January concrete, and said the words like they cost him nothing, like I cost him nothing. I still remember the exact second my heart stopped. Not broke, stopped. And now, 6 months later, I'm standing outside the same glass tower where he destroyed me, one hand pressed flat against my stomach, the other gripping a folded piece of paper so hard the edges cut into my palm. The paper says, 8 weeks along. He rejected me. He just doesn't know yet what he left behind. My name is Seo Jiwon, and I have never once in my life asked anyone to save me. I want that on record before this story goes any further. I grew up in the Hannock Hill neighborhood of Portland, Oregon, in a narrow house that smelled like doenjang jjigae on Sunday mornings and engine oil every other day of the week. My father ran an auto shop on the corner. My mother taught Korean at the community center 2 blocks down. Neither of them presented as anything remarkable in the hierarchy. Beta, both of them. Steady, quiet, proud. Then I turned 19 and my designation came in like a storm nobody warned me about. Omega. The word landed differently than I expected. Not soft, not gentle, like a verdict. In this world, in this city, in this particular version of America, where pack hierarchy still dictates where you work and who you marry and how much space you're allowed to take up in a room, being an Omega meant one thing above everything else. You were wanted for what your body could offer, rarely for who you actually were. I refused to let that be my story. I took every suppressant the clinic offered. I finished my degree in urban architecture at Portland State in 3 years instead of 4. I built a reputation at Hanwoo Design Group as someone you did not dismiss, did not overlook, and absolutely did not underestimate. My colleagues knew me as the one who stayed late, on a hit drew clean lines, and never once let a heat cycle interrupt a deadline. I was careful. I was controlled. I was, by every measure I could hold myself to, untouchable. Until Kang Hyunwoo walked into a client meeting 14 months ago and looked at me across a conference table like I was the only fixed point in a spinning room. Until his scent hit me before his name did, cedar and cold rain and something underneath that I had no word for. It's something that made my carefully constructed walls develop their first crack. I told myself it was chemistry, designation biology, nothing more. I was so convinced I was smarter than my own instincts. I was wrong. Kang Hyunwoo is the second son of the Kang Group, one of the 3 dominant alpha packs that effectively control commercial development on the entire West Coast. His family does not just build buildings. They decide which neighborhoods get funding, which architects get contracts, and which Omegas get blacklisted from the industry if they cause problems. I knew all of this before I ever let myself feel anything. That is the part that still keeps me up at 3 in the morning. I knew exactly who he was. I knew exactly what the cost of getting close to someone like him would be. I had watched it happen to others, seen the careful dismantling of careers and reputations that followed when an Omega got too attached to the wrong alpha. And I still fell. Not slowly. Not gracefully. The way you fall when the floor gives out without warning. For 4 months we existed in something I refused to name out loud. Late nights reviewing blueprints that somehow turned into long silences over cold coffee. His hand brushing mine across a drafting table and neither of us moving away. The way he looked at me sometimes like he was on the edge of saying something he had been holding for years. I let myself believe it was real. Then came the Kang Group annual pack alignment ceremony, the one where alpha heirs formally declare their intended bond matches to secure pack alliance and inheritance standing. He did not call me. He did not warn me. I found out the same way everyone else did, through a press release. His intended, the eldest daughter of the Shin pack, a strategic match that had apparently been arranged long before I ever walked into that conference room. I read it 3 times. Then I went to his office. What happened in that office is something I have replayed so many times, the memory has worn thin at the edges. He stood at the window with his back to me for a long moment before he turned around. His expression was composed, distant, like he had already moved the version of himself that knew me into a locked room somewhere I could not reach. Jiwon, my name in his mouth, but colder than I had ever heard it. Tell me it isn't true, I said. My voice did not shake. I was proud of that. Heir, it's a pack decision, he said. It was never going to be anything else. There it was, 4 months, reduced to a packed decision. And what was I asked. What were we? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for 1 second I saw something move behind his eyes, something that looked almost like grief before it disappeared behind a wall so solid it might as well have been concrete. Nothing that can continue, he said. I left. I did not cry until I reached my car. Shimon, I sat in the parking garage on level 3 and let myself have exactly 11 minutes. Then I stopped, started the engine, and drove home. I was not nothing. I knew that even then. But 6 months later, standing outside his tower with a clinic report folded in my hand and a truth growing inside me that will crack his entire world open. I am done being quiet about it. He called me nothing. It's time he learned exactly what nothing is carrying. Now I push through the revolving door before I can talk myself out of it. The lobby is all marble and cold light, exactly the kind of space designed to make you feel small. A security desk sits at the center. 2 alphas in dark suits stand flanking the elevator bank, their eyes tracking me the moment I walk in. I keep my shoulders back, my chin level. I did not come here to feel small. I am 3 steps from the desk when I hear it, a familiar voice from somewhere behind me, low and controlled and unmistakable, the kind of voice that used to make something in my chest pull tight without permission. I stop walking. No. Slowly I turn around. He is standing at the building entrance, coat half on, mid-conversation with someone I do not recognize. He has not seen me yet. He is laughing at something, easy and unguarded, in a way he never quite was with me near the end. And then his head turns. His eyes find mine across 30 feet of marble floor. The laugh dies. The security guard says something I do not hear. The folded paper in my hand feels like it weighs 100 pounds. Kang Hyunwoo stares at me like I am something he cannot explain. Something that does not fit inside the life he has so carefully rebuilt without me in it. Good, because what I am about to say will not fit either. The security guard is still talking. I know this because his mouth is moving. Something about sign-in procedures and visitor badges, and did I have an appointment? A standard lobby protocol, very professional, very thorough. I hear none of it, because Kang Hyunwoo is walking toward me. Not fast, not slow. That measured, deliberate pace he has always used, the one that says he is in complete control of every room he enters and every situation he walks into. His coat is still half on, one arm through the sleeve, the other hanging loose. The man he was talking to has stopped mid-sentence, somewhere behind him, visibly confused, already watching his boss cross a marble lobby toward a stranger with an expression that is very hard to read. I know how to read it. I have had 6 months to study every version of that face from memory. Jiwon, same word, same name. But this time it does not sound cold. It sounds like something he was not prepared to say, like a word that bypassed whatever filter he keeps between his feelings and his mouth. I tilt my head slightly and give him the most unbothered look I own. Hyunwoo, I say. Casual, easy. Like I run into men who destroyed my life in fancy lobbies all the time, and it is simply not that interesting. Internally, my heart is doing something embarrassing, and I refuse to acknowledge it. He stops 2 feet away, close enough that I catch it before I can stop myself. That scent. Cedar. Cold rain. And underneath it, something warmer now. Something almost unsettled, which is new. A Kang Hyunwoo, unsettled is not a thing I ever had the pleasure of witnessing when we were whatever we were. I file that away. What are you doing here? He asks. His voice is low. Private. He does not want the security guard or the confused man by the door or the 2 suited alphas near the elevator to hear this conversation. I smile, slow and deliberate. I have business in the building, I say. With who? With you, actually. Something moves through his expression. Not guilt exactly. Not quite surprise, something in between. Like a man who has been waiting for a consequence to arrive and is not fully ready now that it is standing in front of him in a good coat. Good. He should feel that. This isn't the place, he says. You're right, I agree pleasantly. Your office would be better. Shall we? The elevator ride is a particular kind of torture I was not fully prepared for. It is just the 2 of us. His security team stayed in the lobby after he gave them a look that dismissed them without a single word. The man he was talking to outside has apparently decided that whatever meeting they had planned can wait, because he is nowhere in sight. Now it is 23 floors of brushed steel walls and recycled air, and his scent wrapping around the enclosed space like it owns it. My suppressants have kept everything manageable for 6 months. They are currently staging a protest. I keep my eyes on the floor numbers climbing above the door. 14, 15, 16. You look well, he says. I almost laugh out loud. I am well, I say. Thank you for noticing. Jiwon. Hyunwoo. He makes a short sound that is almost frustration. Almost. On anyone else it would be obvious. On him it is barely a shift in breath, but I catch it and I store it like evidence. You could have called, he says. Now I do laugh. Just a small one. Private and dry. Mine I could have, I agree. But then I would have missed the look on your face in the lobby, and honestly that was worth the drive. 17, 18, 19. He turns to look at me. I can feel it without turning my head. That specific quality of attention he has always had, the kind that makes you feel like the only thing in a room worth focusing on. I spent 4 months both craving and distrusting that feeling. I still do not fully trust it. But my pulse is not getting the memo. I am whatever you came to say, he begins. I'll say it upstairs, I tell him. Firm, final. Not in an elevator. He closes his mouth. 23. The doors open. His office is exactly how I remember it. Floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Portland skyline. A drafting table along the east wall that he never stopped using even after he had 3 architects on staff who could do the work for him. The faint smell of coffee and cedar and old blueprints that somehow survived every cleaning crew. I used to love this room. I walk to the center of it and turn around to face him. He has closed the door. He is standing in front of it, coat finally fully on now, arms loose at his sides, watching me with that unreadable, careful expression. I reach into my bag. I take out the folded clinic paper. I cross the room and hold it out to him without a word. He looks at my face first, and then at the paper. He takes it slowly, like he already knows on some level that whatever is inside it is going to change the geography of this entire conversation. He unfolds it. I watch his eyes move across the page. I watch the exact moment he finds the number. 8 weeks. I watch the controlled, composed, untouchable Kang Hyunwoo go completely still. There it is. The silence in the room becomes a living thing. Jiwon, he says. Yeah, and this time my name in his mouth sounds like the ground moving under his feet. Before you say anything, I tell him, my voice steady and clear, and carrying every ounce of the strength I have been building for 6 months, I want you to understand something. I take the paper back from his hand. I fold it. I put it back in my bag. I did not come here for you, I say. I came here because this child deserves to be acknowledged. That is the only reason I am standing in this room. His mouth opens. I am not finished. You told me I was nothing, I continue. So I need you to look at me right now and tell me again. He does not say it. He does not say anything. He just stands there. The skyline of Portland spread out behind him like a painting, staring at me with an expression I have never seen on his face before, in all the months I spent cataloging every version of him. It looks terrifyingly like the beginning of something. I was not prepared for that. His hand moves. Just slightly, toward me and then stopped, like he caught himself mid-reach and did not know what to do with the impulse. My stomach does something I refuse to name. This was supposed to be simple. Walk in, state the truth, walk out. The way he is looking at me right now is a problem I did not account for. And somewhere in the building below us, I hear the elevator doors open. Footsteps, more than one person. We moving with the kind of unhurried authority that means whoever is coming up that hall does not knock before entering. Of course, nothing about Kang Hyunwoo has ever been simple. The door opens without a knock. I had exactly 3 seconds to prepare, which was not enough, because the man who walks through it is not security, not an assistant, and absolutely not someone I was expecting to see in this building on this particular morning when my life is already complicated enough. Kang Taiju. The eldest son, the one who got the title, the inheritance vote, and apparently the ability to walk into rooms like he personally constructed them. He is taller than Hyunwoo by 2 inches, broader across the shoulders, with the kind of cold precision in his face that makes junior architects cry quietly in bathroom stalls during project reviews. I have seen it happen. He is also objectively the most intimidating alpha on the West Coast. He stops when he sees me. His eyes move from my face to his brother and back again with the slow, deliberate focus of someone running a calculation. "Hyunwoo," he says. Not a greeting, more like a flag planted in the middle of the room. "Taiju," Hyunwoo says behind me. Something in his voice has shifted, tighter, more careful, interesting. Taiju looks at me again. Really looks. The kind of look that catalogs and files and draws conclusions before most people finish a sentence. "Seo Jiwon," he says, "Hanul Design Group. You consulted on the Bridgewater mixed-use project 18 months ago." I blink once. Good memory. "It's useful," he says simply. Then to his brother, "Am I interrupting something?" The pause that follows is approximately 400 years long. "No," Hyunwoo says. "Yes," I say at the same time. Taiju's expression does not change, but something in it sharpens, the way a room sharpens when the lights go from dim to full without warning. He closes the door behind him, does not leave. Apparently that was not actually a question. Of course it wasn't. "I'll come back," he says, which means the opposite, because he moves to the drafting table along the east wall and sets down the folder he is carrying like a man who has decided this corner of the room belongs to him now. I turn back to Hyunwoo. He is looking at his brother with an expression that is doing a lot of work. Warning, frustration, and then underneath both of those something that looks like quiet panic, which on Kang Hyunwoo's face is so subtle, most people would miss it entirely. I do not miss it. I spent 4 months learning that face. That particular set of his jaws panic. I would bet my drafting license on it. "We can finish this another time," Hyunwoo says to me. Low, private. I almost laugh again. "You've said that before," I tell him. Different words, same result. "I don't think another time works for me." His jaw tightens. From the drafting table, Taiju opens his folder and says nothing. But he is not reading it. No one turns pages that slowly when they are actually reading. He is listening to every word. Fine. Let him listen. "Ji-won." Hyunwoo steps closer. Close enough that his scent hits me again. Cedar and rain. And that new undercurrent of something unsettled that keeps disrupting my concentration. "Whatever you need to discuss, I will make time. Properly, not like this." "Not like what?" I ask. "Not like the truth showing up in your lobby without an appointment?" "That's not what I mean." "Then say what you mean," I tell him. "You're very good at saying nothing with a lot of words." "I've noticed." Something flickers in his eyes. Not anger. Closer to recognition. Like a man hearing his own voice played back to him and not loving what he hears. Good. Sit with that. "I mean," he says carefully, "Johnny, that this conversation deserves privacy." "Your brother already knows something is happening," I point out. "He walked in here, saw my face, and started filing information. He is going to know everything by the end of the day whether you tell him or not. So privacy is already a theoretical concept at this point." From the drafting table without looking up, Taiju says, "He's not wrong." Hyunwoo closes his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. I like Taiju a little bit, just slightly, against my better judgment. "I'm not asking you for anything," I say, and I need him to hear this part clearly because it is the part that matters most. I want that understood before this goes any further. I did not come here to negotiate or beg or give you a chance to do the right thing because I need you to. I came here because legally and ethically, you have a right to know. That's the beginning and the end of my reason for being in this room." Hyunwoo opens his eyes. "Seo Jiwon," he says, and his voice has lost that careful, controlled quality. It sounds rougher now, more honest. "You can't tell me something like that and expect me to just what?" He stops. "Say it," I think. "For once in your life, just say the actual thing." He does not say it. He breathes instead. One long, controlled breath through his nose. And I watch him pull that composure back around himself like armor. Watched him choose control over honesty the exact same way he has always chosen it. And something in my chest tightens in a way that is not quite grief and not quite anger, but lives exactly in the space between them. I know this version of him. I used to wait for it to crack. I am done waiting. I'm going to leave my number with your assistant, I tell him, picking up my bag. When you've decided how you want to handle this like an adult, you can call me. I'll answer once. After that, I start making decisions without your input. I turn toward the door. Jiwon. I stop. I do not turn around. How are you? He asks. The question is so quiet, so unguarded, so completely stripped of everything he usually hides behind that. For one terrible second, it reaches through every wall I have built in 6 months and touches something I thought I had successfully buried. Do not turn around. Do not. I turn around. He is standing in the middle of his office, coat still on, my hands loose at his sides, looking at me with something so open and undefended on his face that it almost does not look like him at all. Behind him, Taiju has finally closed his folder, and he is watching his brother with an expression I cannot read yet. Something complicated and old, like a man watching a wound he recognized a long time ago finally decide to bleed. Something happened between these two, something that has nothing to do with me, and then somehow I have just walked directly into the middle of it. I'm fine, I say. 2 words, clean, uncomplicated, the kind of answer that closes a door politely without slamming it. Hyunwoo nods once, slowly, like he is accepting something he does not fully believe, but does not have the standing to challenge. Good. That is exactly the correct amount of distance. I turn back toward the door. There's a situation, Taiju says. I stop for the second time in 30 seconds, which is already twice more than I planned to stop in this room today. I turn toward him instead of his brother, because at least with Taiju, I know exactly what I'm dealing with. Cold, calculated, no history between us. Clean sightlines. A situation, I repeat. He closes the folder completely and sets it flat on the drafting table. His hands rest on top of it, relaxed, which on a man like Taiju means the opposite of relaxed. The Bridgewater Project, he says. Phase 2. The City Planning Committee rejected the structural modification proposal 3 days ago. The lead architect on the revision pulled out this morning. Conflict of interest, apparently. He pauses. With us. I look at him steadily. That sounds like a you problem. It was, he agrees, until I walked in here and found you standing in my brother's office holding what I'm fairly certain is a prenatal clinic report. The silence in the room becomes very loud, very fast. I genuinely cannot tell if I want to laugh or walk directly out a window. I'm not here about Bridgewater, I say. I know, Taiju says, but Bridgewater is here about you. He straightens. You designed the original structural concept for Phase 1. The planning committee has your name in their approval file. You are the only architect in Portland with both the existing clearance and the technical history on this project to get a revision approved before the city deadline in 11 days. I stare at him. He stares back. 11 days, I say flatly. 10 if you account for the submission window. And you want me to what exactly? Drop my current workload, come work in this building, in your offices, with your brother, while I am currently... I gesture vaguely at my own midsection. Carrying his child, Taiju finishes, with the calm delivery of a man reading a weather forecast. Yes, I'm aware the optics are complicated. Complicated. That is one word for it. I turn to look at Hyunwoo. He is standing very still, with an expression that suggests he is having a complete internal crisis, while somehow keeping his face mostly assembled. Did you know about this? I ask him. The project. I found out this morning, he says, before you arrived. And were you planning to mention it? I was processing other information at the time. Fair, I think, against my will. That is actually fair. I set my bag down on the nearest chair. Not because I have decided to stay, but because I need 30 seconds to think, and standing while holding a bag is somehow more exhausting than it should be lately, which is a pregnancy symptom I resent deeply. Let me be clear about something, I say, addressing both of them but looking at neither. I look at the Portland skyline instead, gray and wide and indifferent, the kind of view that puts things in perspective whether you want it to or not. I have a life, I have a job, I have a lease, I have a doctor's appointment on Thursday, and I have exactly zero interest in spending 10 days in this building, tangled up in Kang group politics, while my own future is sitting in a waiting room. Understood, Taiju says. I'm not finished. He closes his mouth. Somehow this feels like a small victory. If I look at this project, I continue, it is because the work is worth doing, and the deadline is real, and I have professional standards that exist completely independently of whatever this is. I gesture between myself and Hyunwoo without looking at him. Not because of obligation, not because of guilt, and not because you need something from me. Understood, Taiju says again. I finally look at Hyunwoo. He is watching me with that open, undefended expression still on his face, the one that keeps ambushing me, and I wish he would put it away because it is significantly harder to stay sharp when he looks like that. And you, I say, if I am in this building for any amount of time, you do not get to use the project as a reason to be in my space. Professional distance, clear communication, nothing else. He holds my gaze. Okay? I mean it. I know you do, he says quietly. Oh, the problem is, he sounds like he means it too. Taiju picks up the folder and holds it out toward me. I look at it for a long moment. The corner of it, the clean edge, the weight of 10 days and 11 floors and one very complicated man standing 15 feet away from me, wrapped up in a manila folder. I take it. I already know I'm going to regret this. I open it. The revised structural proposal is on top, flagged in 3 places where the planning committee pushed back. I read the first flag, then the second. By the third, my brain has already started quietly solving the problem the way it always does, pulling dimensions and load calculations and precedent cases from the organized filing system I keep in the back of my mind at all times. It is a good project. It was always a good project. I'll review it today, I say. I'm not committing to anything until I've read the full rejection notes. Of course, Taiju says. I close the folder. I pick up my bag. I look at neither of them as I move toward the door because I need at least one exit from this room that feels like I am in control of it. My hand is on the door handle when Hyunwoo speaks. Jiwon. I wait. Thank you, he says, for coming, for telling me. I do not answer. I pull the door open and walk out into the hallway and keep my pace even and unhurried all the way to the elevator. I press the button. I wait. Do not think about the way his voice sounded when he said thank you. Do not think about Taiju's face when he watched his brother. Do not think about the fact that you just agreed to spend 10 days in this building when you came here with the intention of delivering one piece of paper and leaving forever. The elevator opens. A man steps out. Young, maybe late 20s. Dark hair pushed back from his face, a messenger bag over one shoulder, blueprints tucked under his arm. He glances at me as he passes and then stops. Turns back. You're Seo Jiwon, he says. Not a question. I look at him properly for the first time. He is an Omega. I can tell by the scent, light and warm like sun on paper, and by the way he holds himself, that particular combination of careful and ready that Omegas who work in alpha-dominant spaces learn early or pay for not learning. He is also looking at me like I am either exactly who he was hoping to run into or exactly who he was hoping to avoid. I cannot yet tell which one. Depends on who's asking, I say. He exhales. I'm short and relieved and slightly desperate. I'm no Sung-hoon, he says. I was the lead architect on the Bridgewater revision. The one who just pulled out this morning. The conflict of interest. He looks down the hallway toward Hyunwoo's office, then back at me. I need to tell you something, he says, before you agree to anything. About this project. About the Kangs. He pauses. About why I left. Of course, there is more. I look at No Sung-hoon for exactly 3 seconds, and then I step back from the elevator and let the doors close without me. Talk fast, I tell him. He exhales again, that same short, relieved breath, and shifts the blueprints under his arm like he is buying himself a half second to organize his thoughts. Up close, he looks younger than I first estimated, maybe 26. The kind of tired that is not about sleep, but about carrying something heavy for too long. I recognize that tired. I have seen it in my own mirror for 6 months. Not here, he says, glancing down the hall again. Then where? There's a coffee place on the 2nd floor. The Kangs don't use it. too casual for their taste. He says this last part with a very specific flatness that tells me he has opinions about the Kang family's relationship with casual spaces. Honestly, fair. Lead the way, I say. The second-floor coffee counter is a narrow slip of a place tucked between a conference room and a copy center. The kind of space that exists in corporate buildings specifically so assistants and junior staff have somewhere to escape to without leaving the building. 2 small tables, a chalkboard menu, a beta barista who looks up when we walk in, clocks both of us as non-executives, and returns to wiping the counter with the energy of someone who has completely made peace with his life choices. I respect that energy deeply right now. Sung-hoon orders an Americano. I order a decaf because that is my life now, apparently, and I do not want to discuss it. We sit. He wraps both hands around his cup and looks at the table for a moment before he looks at me. I worked with Kang Group for 2 years, he starts. The Bridgewater project was mine from the beginning. Phase 1, Phase 2, the whole vision. Taiju brought me in personally. He pauses. I thought that meant something. I know exactly where this is going. I let him get there himself. 6 months ago, he continues, I found out that the Phase 2 modification I had been developing, the structural redesign that the planning committee just rejected, was being quietly shopped to another firm, behind my back, with my original concepts repackaged under a different name. I set my cup down carefully. By who? I ask. He looks at me. Taiju. The coffee counter barista turns to restock cups, and the sound of ceramic against ceramic fills the silence for a moment. Taiju. I think about the man I just stood across from upstairs. The closed folder, the careful hands, the way he laid out the Bridgewater situation with the calm precision of someone who already knew every variable in the room, including me. You said conflict of interest, I say slowly. That's why you pulled out. I pulled out because Taiju came to me this morning and told me to, Sung-hoon says. Incheon, he said the committee rejection changed the timeline, and he needed someone with existing clearance to step in. He said it like it was a simple personnel swap. His jaw tightens. Like 2 years of my work was just a seat that needed to be filled. And you think he knew I would be here today? Sung-hoon is quiet for 1 beat too long. He knew. I lean back in my chair and look at the chalkboard menu without reading it, because I need somewhere to put my eyes while my brain rearranges several things simultaneously. Taiju walked into that office this morning, already knowing I was there. He laid out the Bridgewater situation with the timing of a man who had prepared the room before the conversation started. He handed me that folder like an offering. The question is why? There's something else, Sung-hoon says. I look back at him. He is gripping his cup tighter now. On the reason Taiju shopped my designs to another firm. The reason he is suddenly so interested in bringing you specifically onto this project. He stops. Starts again. It's not about Bridgewater. Then what is it about? The Shin Pack, he says. There it is. The name lands in my chest like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples out to every edge. The Shin Pack. The Alliance. The arranged bond that was announced in a press release while I sat in a parking garage and gave myself 11 minutes to fall apart. What about them? I ask. My voice is steady. I am proud of that, genuinely, because my pulse just did something unpleasant. The Shin Pack has been pushing to absorb the Bridgewater territory for 8 months, Sung-hoon says. If the Phase 2 modification fails and the city deadline passes, Kang Group loses the development rights. The territory reverts to open bid. He meets my eyes. The Shin Pack is the only other bidder registered. I stare at him. Hyunwoo's intended, I say carefully. She is Shin territory heir. Yes. So if Kang Group loses Bridgewater, they lose the territory and significantly weaken their position before the bond is even formalized. Sung-hoon finishes. The alliance falls apart. The arrangement collapses. He pauses. There are people inside Kang Group who want that to happen. And there are people who very much do not. And Taiju. Where does Taiju stand? Why are you telling me this? I ask. Sung-hoon looks at me with that particular expression of someone who has decided to be honest because they have run out of better options. Because you are walking into something that is bigger than a project deadline, he says, and because you are an omega in an alpha power struggle that nobody invited you to, but everybody is planning to use. He holds my gaze. Anand, I thought you deserved to know the shape of the room before you decided whether to stay in it. I sit with that for a moment. It is, genuinely, one of the more decent things a near stranger has said to me in recent memory. Thank you, I tell him, and I mean it. He nods, finishes his coffee. I look down at the folder in my hands. The Bridgewater revision. 10 days, 11 floors. One man upstairs who is the father of my child. One man upstairs who may have orchestrated this entire morning, and now a crumbling pack alliance held together with an arranged bond that nobody in this story seems particularly happy about. I came here to deliver a piece of paper. I should have stayed in my car. My phone buzzes. I look at the screen. Unknown number. Portland area code. I answer it because today has already established that surprises are simply the format now. Seo Jiwon, says a voice I do not recognize. Older, female, and the kind of voice that is accustomed to rooms going quiet when it speaks. Yes, I say slowly. My name is Kang Hyunwoo, she says, Hyunwoo and Taiju's mother. I set my coffee cup down. I know why you came to the building today, she continues. I know what you told my son, and I think it is time you and I had a conversation that neither of my boys has the sense to arrange themselves. I look across the table at Sung-hoon. He reads my face and his eyebrows rise slightly. Now I mouth the words, his mother. His eyes go wide. He mouths back, run. Deeply unhelpful, noted. Mrs. Kang, I say into the phone, keeping my voice even and my spine straight, even though I am sitting in a corporate coffee corner on the second floor of a building I came to for 11 minutes and have now apparently moved into. I'm listening. Good, she says. And somehow that single word contains an entire lifetime of a woman who has been waiting for someone in her family to finally make an interesting decision. My car is outside, she says. I suggest you come down. Of course, she is already here. Of course. Sung-hoon watches me stand up from the table with the expression of a man observing someone walk voluntarily toward a natural disaster. You're actually going, he says. She's already outside, I tell him, and I'm pulling my bag onto my shoulder. What exactly would avoiding her accomplish besides giving her more time to plan whatever she is already planning? He considers this. Fair point. She's terrifying. You've met her? Once. At a project review. He pauses. I stress-baked for 3 days afterward. I file that information away and head for the elevator. The car outside is not what I expected. I think I expected something black and armored and aggressively expensive. And I want the kind of vehicle that announces power before anyone steps out of it. What is actually idling at the curb is a dark navy sedan. Understated, clean, the kind of car that belongs to someone who has nothing left to prove. The window rolls down. Kang Hyunwoo is smaller than her voice suggested. Late 50s, hair pulled back with the kind of effortless precision that takes decades to develop, wearing a coat the color of winter fog. And her eyes are sharp and dark and immediately familiar in a way that takes me a half second to place. She has Hyunwoo's eyes, the same quality of attention, the same stillness behind them. Except where Hyunwoo uses his to guard himself, she uses hers like a tool she has been sharpening for a very long time. Get in, she says. Not unkindly, but not as a question either. I get in. She does not drive anywhere. The car stays at the curb, engine running, the heat on low. Outside, Portland moves past the windows in its usual gray, unhurried way. A cyclist, a food cart, two betas in matching jackets arguing cheerfully about something involving a paper coffee cup. Normal city, normal morning, except I am sitting in a car with the matriarch of the most powerful alpha pack on the West Coast, and my hands are folded in my lap with a composure I am constructing in real time. You're steadier than I expected, she says, studying me. You expected me to be nervous, I say. Most people are. I've had a complicated morning, I tell her. I used up my nervous on the elevator ride. Something in her expression shifts. Not quite a smile. More like the beginning of a reassessment. Hyunwoo called me, she says, 7 minutes after you left his office. 7 minutes. So it took him 7 minutes to process and reach for his phone. I do not know what to do with that information, so I set it to one side. What did he say? I ask. That you came. That you told him. She pauses. That you were more composed than he deserved. He said that. I keep my face neutral with significant effort. He's not wrong, Ninaran, I say. She turns in her seat to look at me more directly. I want to tell you something, Jiwon, and I want you to hear it without deciding what it means before I finish. Okay, I say carefully. The arrangement with the Shin Pack, she begins, was not Hyunwoo's choice. I want that said plainly. It was a decision made by my husband and the senior Pack Council 14 months ago, formalized before Hyunwoo had standing to refuse it without splitting the Pack's internal vote. She holds my gaze. He came to me the night before the announcement. He sat in my kitchen and he did not say your name, but I knew. Mothers know. The heat in the car feels suddenly warmer. Do not react to that. Do not. That doesn't change what happened, I say. My voice is even. I am very proud of how even my voice is right now. No, she agrees. It doesn't. What he said to you was wrong. The way he handled it was wrong. I am not here to excuse any of it. I look at her. Then why are you here? She is quiet for a moment. Outside, the cyclist loops back past the window, apparently having forgotten something. Because my son is about to become a father, she says softly, and I have watched him spend 6 months becoming someone I do not entirely recognize. Efficient, correct, completely hollowed out. She looks at her hands briefly, then back at me. And because you came to that building today not asking for rescue or revenge, you came with your spine straight and your facts in order, and you handed him the truth and told him what it meant and what it didn't. She pauses. That is not a person who needs my protection, but it is a person I wanted to meet. Something in my chest does a thing I am categorically not prepared for. I look out the window at the gray Portland street and breathe through it. I don't need anything from your family, I say quietly. I know, she says. That is exactly why I came. We sit in the quiet for a moment that stretches longer than it should and somehow does not feel uncomfortable. The heat hums. Rain begins, soft and unhurried, speckling the windshield in a pattern that has no logic to it. The arrangement with the Shin Pack, I say eventually. Is it still moving forward? She does not answer immediately. That non-answer is its own kind of answer. There are complications, she says finally, internal ones. The timeline has shifted. Because of Bridgewater, I say. She looks at me with something that is definitely a reassessment now, open and direct. Taiju told you. Taiju told me some of it, I say. Someone else told me the rest. Sung-hoon, she says without hesitation. I neither confirm nor deny this because I like Sung-hoon, and he stress bakes, and he does not deserve to be caught in the middle of anything else today. She accepts my silence with a small nod. You already understand the shape of it, she says. Enough of it, I agree. She reaches into the small compartment between the seats and takes out an envelope. She holds it out to me. I look at it without taking it. What is this? I ask. A letter, she says. Written 8 months ago. By Hyunwoo. She keeps it extended toward me, steady and patient. He wrote it when the arrangement was formalized. He never sent it. She pauses. I found it in his old apartment when he moved into the tower. I kept it because I thought someday it might matter to someone. My heart does something slow and seismic. You kept your adult son's unsent letter, I say. I'm his mother, she says simply. It's in the job description. I should not take it. I know I should not take it. Suddenly, my hand reaches out. My fingers close around the envelope before my better judgment finishes making its case. It is light. 1 page, maybe 2. The kind of weight that should not be able to change anything, and yet I can feel it the moment it is in my hand. Something unsteady moving through my chest like the first tremor before something larger decides to shift. The rain picks up against the windshield. Soo-yeon watches me hold it. He doesn't know I have it, she says quietly. Anchor that I'm giving it to you. I look at her. Then why are you? I ask. She looks back at me with those sharp, familiar eyes, her son's eyes, and something in them is very tired and very honest all at once. Because, she says, someone in this family needs to stop being afraid of the truth. And upstairs, 23 floors above us, I am almost certain Hyunwoo is standing at his window, looking down. I get out of the car with the envelope in my hand, and the rain coming down soft and steady against my coat. Soo-yeon does not say goodbye exactly. She says, take care of yourself first, in a tone that lands somewhere between instruction and prayer. And then her window rolls up and the navy sedan pulls smoothly away from the curb like it was never there. I stand on the wet sidewalk outside the Kang Tower and look down at the envelope. No name on the front, no address. Just the slight warp of paper that happens when someone has picked something up and put it back down many times without opening it. Someone kept this for 8 months. Someone else wrote it and never sent it. And I am standing in the rain holding it, like it is either a gift or a grenade, and I genuinely cannot tell which. I put it in my bag. I go back inside. When the lobby security desk clocks me, returning with the specific expression of a man who has watched too many dramatic mornings to be surprised by anything anymore. I give him a polite nod. He gives me a visitor badge without being asked. We understand each other. I take the elevator to 23. The doors open and I step into the hallway and immediately stop because Hyunwoo is standing 12 feet away and leaning against the wall outside his office with his arms crossed and his coat finally off. Sleeves pushed to his elbows, looking like a man who came out here to think and has been here long enough for it to become a problem. He straightens when he sees me. "You went outside," he says. "Observant," I tell him. "My mother called me." "Of course she did." "What did she say?" I ask carefully. "That she introduced herself." He holds my gaze. "Weren't that she liked you?" I walk past him toward the office. Smart woman. He follows, naturally, like gravity. Inside, Taiju is gone. The drafting table is clear. The folder I was given is the only thing on it, and I realize Taiju left it there deliberately, a small architectural nudge in the direction he has already decided this should go. I set my bag down. I do not take out the envelope. Hyunwoo closes the door and stands in the middle of the room and looks at me with that open, unguarded expression that he keeps accidentally wearing around me today, and I need him to stop because it makes everything significantly harder. "I want to explain," he says. "You don't have to," I tell him. "I want to." I turn to face him fully. "Hyunwoo, I did not come here for an explanation. I came here to tell you the truth, and I did that. Now, whatever you need to process about it is yours to process. You don't owe me a speech, and I don't need one." "It's not a speech," he says. His voice drops. "It's an apology." The word lands differently than I expected. Not because I have not imagined him saying it. I have. Late at night in my apartment with the lights off and my hand pressed flat against my stomach, I have played out approximately 40 versions of this conversation. In most of them, the apology comes with conditions or explanations attached, something that softens his role and redistributes the weight. This does not sound like that. This sounds like a man who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has finally decided to set it down regardless of what happens next. I stay very still. "What I said to you in this office 6 months ago," he begins, "the way I said it, I have thought about it almost every day since." He does not move closer. He stays where he is, giving me the space I asked for, which somehow makes it worse. "I told you it was a packed decision. I made it sound like you were a variable I had to account for, rather than a person I had chosen to be close to. And that was not the truth." "What was the truth?" I ask. Quiet. He looks at me steadily. "That I was terrified. That the arrangement had been formalized, and I did not have the standing to refuse it without fracturing the pack vote, and I told myself that made it necessary. That being cold was kinder than being honest." He exhales. "I was wrong. It wasn't kind. It was cowardice." The rain against the windows fills the silence between us. I want to stay angry. I have been very carefully maintaining this anger for 6 months, and it has served me well, and I would like to keep it, please. "Why are you telling me this now?" I ask. "Because you're here," he says. "Because you came through that door this morning with a truth I did not deserve, and you delivered it with more dignity than I had any right to receive. And because I have been standing in this building all morning trying to figure out how to be worth that." Something in my chest cracks. Just slightly. Just at the edge. I breathe through it. "I need you to understand something," I tell him. My voice is steady. It's strong. "Your apology is heard. I mean that. But heard is not the same as resolved. What you did hurt me in a way that did not go away cleanly, and I am not going to stand here and tell you it did just because you said the right words." "I know," he says. "This child is mine first," I continue. Every decision I make going forward is made with that as the first priority. Not the pack, not the arrangement, not whatever Taiju is trying to engineer with this project. Mine. I understand. Do you? I ask. Because understanding that is different from agreeing with it in theory. He crosses the room. Not fast. Measured. That deliberate pace. He stops 2 feet away and looks at me with something so raw and unfiltered on his face that it almost does not fit the office, the skyline, the cold corporate geometry of this room. Yes, he says simply. I do. And then his phone rings. He does not look away from me. He reaches into his pocket without breaking eye contact and glances at the screen, and something in his face shifts so fast and so completely that my stomach drops before he says a single word. I have to take this, he says. Okay, I say slowly. He answers. Yes. A pause. He listens. The quality of his stillness changes, going from open and present to something locked and distant in the span of 4 seconds. When did she arrive? He says. Another pause. Don't let her upstairs, he says. I'll come down. He hangs up. He looks at me, and the open, unguarded version of him that has been present all morning is completely gone, replaced by something controlled and careful and very much on guard. Who is here? I ask. He says the name like it costs him something. Shin Ara, the intended. Here, now, in this building. The air in the room changes entirely. I feel it before I process it. And it's that shift in atmospheric pressure when something you have been abstractly aware of becomes suddenly, concretely real. She is not a press release anymore. She is downstairs, and I am standing in her intended's office, holding his child and his mother's envelope, and the ruins of an apology that was just starting to mean something. Of course she is here. Hyunwoo looks at me with an expression that is trying to say several things at once, and succeeding at none of them. Jiwon, he starts. Go, I tell him. Flat, calm. Every wall I own back in position and load-bearing. This isn't what it looks like. It looks like your intended just arrived at your building, I say. That is exactly what it looks like. He takes 1 step toward me. Don't, I say quietly. He stops. I pick up my bag. I pick up the Bridgewater folder. Hanoi and I walk to the drafting table and set the folder down on it with a precise, controlled motion that I am using as a substitute for every other thing I would like to do right now. I'll review the project notes, I say, professional and clean. I'll have preliminary feedback by tomorrow morning. And then my voice does the one thing I told it absolutely not to do. It drops. Just slightly. Just enough. Congratulations on your arrangement, I say, and I mean it to land like a door closing. When it does. I walk out of his office for the second time today. This time it feels different. The first time I left with the clean satisfaction of someone who delivered a truth and held their ground. This time I leave with something quieter and less comfortable sitting in my chest. Something that has no clean name, but feels like the specific weight of watching something almost become real and then not. Almost. That word does a lot of damage for 4 letters. The hallway is empty. Hyunwoo took the other elevator down, the executive one at the south end of the building. I know this because I heard his footsteps go right instead of left, and I was paying attention against my own better judgment. I press the call button for the main elevator. I wait. My reflection stares back at me from the polished steel doors, coat slightly damp from the rain, bag on one shoulder, face composed in that particular way I have spent years developing. The look that says everything is fine, and I am in control, and there is absolutely nothing happening behind these eyes worth discussing. My reflection is not entirely convincing today. The envelope in my bag feels like it has a pulse. The elevator opens. Taiju is inside it. We look at each other for 1 flat second. Going down? He asks. That was the plan, I say, stepping in. The doors close, and here we are again. Different elevator, same building, same particular quality of contained tension that seems to follow this family around like weather. She's here, I say. Not a question. Yes, he says. Did you know she was coming today? He is quiet for exactly long enough to be an answer. Taiju, I say. I suspected, he says carefully. Shin Ara has been making unscheduled appearances at Kang properties for the past 3 weeks. She is establishing presence. It is a calculated move. He pauses. When today's timing is unfortunate, I look at the floor numbers descending. 20, 19, 18. Unfortunate, I repeat. That is a very diplomatic word for it. I find diplomatic words useful, he says. I noticed, I tell him. You also find other people's architects useful, and other people's design concepts, and apparently other people's personal crises. The elevator does not make a sound. Taiju looks at me with that sharp, assessing gaze and does not deny a single word. And I respect that, actually, reluctantly, against my will. Sung-hoon told you about the designs, he says. Sung-hoon told me enough, I say. You want to tell me the rest? 14, 13. The designs were not stolen, he says. They were repurposed during a period when the project parameters changed significantly. Sung-hoon's original vision was no longer viable for the revised scope. He pauses. I handled the transition poorly. I am aware of that. Poorly, I say. On another diplomatic word. I did not give him adequate credit or communication, Taiju says. That was wrong. I have made arrangements to correct it. I look at him sideways. Does Sung-hoon know that? He will, by end of day. I file that away. And the Bridgewater project, I say. The real reason you want me on it. The Shin territory play. Were you going to tell me that part, or were you planning to let me figure it out somewhere around day 7? 10, 9. Taiju is quiet for a moment that is several degrees more honest than his previous silences. I was going to tell you, he says, when you had enough context to understand the full picture. I have enough context now, I say, so tell me. The elevator stops at the 5th floor unexpectedly. The doors open. A junior associate steps halfway in, sees Taiju's face, and steps immediately back out. I'll take the stairs, she says pleasantly, and disappears. The doors close. I understand her completely. The Shin Pact does not simply want the Bridgewater territory, Taiju says, his voice lower now, more direct than I have heard it all morning. They want the development corridor that connects Bridgewater to the North Waterfront District. That corridor runs through 4 blocks of current Kang territory. If they absorb Bridgewater through the open bid, they have legal grounds to petition for corridor access rights. Now, within 2 years, they would control the most valuable commercial development stretch in Portland. I process this. And the alliance with Hyunwoo, the arrangement, was designed to prevent exactly that, Taiju says. A bonded alliance between Kang and Shin would merge the territorial claims and eliminate the conflict. He looks at the descending numbers. It was a reasonable solution to a territorial problem. Nay, it was not a reasonable thing to do to my brother. The honesty in that last sentence is so sudden and unguarded that I almost miss it. Almost. You don't want the arrangement to go through, I say slowly. He does not answer. Taiju. I want what is best for this pack, he says carefully. Those two things are not always the same. 3, 2. And bringing me into this building today, I say. And was that what is best for the pack, or what is best for your brother? The elevator reaches the lobby. The doors open. Taiju looks at me with something that is the closest thing to unguarded I have seen on his face all morning. Both, he says quietly. I am hoping it is both. I step out into the lobby and stop, because standing 20 feet away near the reception desk, speaking to someone in a low, composed voice, is a woman I have never met and would have recognized anywhere from the pack announcement photos alone. Shin Ara. She is polished in the way of someone who has been taught since childhood that appearance is a form of power. Dark coat, perfect posture, the kind of careful beauty that takes significant effort to make look effortless. An alpha's daughter bred for alliance negotiations and territorial strategy. She has not seen me yet. I could walk left, take the side exit, or be in my car in 45 seconds. I could. I stand exactly where I am. Because I am Seo Jiwon, and I came into this building with my spine straight, and I am leaving the same way regardless of who is standing between me and the door. She turns. Our eyes meet. She looks at me with the focused assessment of someone who has been briefed. She knows who I am. I can see it in the half second before her expression settles into something smooth and social and perfectly calibrated. Once she knows my name, my designation, and I would bet considerably that she knows exactly why I was on the 23rd floor today. She crosses the lobby toward me. Of course she does. Seo Jiwon, she says. Her voice is pleasant, controlled, the kind of pleasant that has teeth behind it. Shinara, I say back, equally pleasant, equally controlled, equally full of teeth. And we stand 2 feet apart in the marble lobby of the Kang Tower while the security guard pretends to look at his monitor, and Taiju stands at the elevator with the expression of a man watching something he set in motion arrive at its destination. I've heard about you, she says. Interesting, I say. I've heard about you too. Her eyes drop briefly, just for a fraction of a second, to my midsection. She knows everything. She looks back up at my face and something shifts in her expression. Not hostility, not triumph. Something more complicated than either of those, something that looks, unexpectedly, almost like exhaustion. I think, she says quietly, low enough that only I can hear it, that you and I need to have a very honest conversation. I look at her. She looks at me. And for the first time today, I am genuinely, completely surprised. Because she does not sound like a rival. She sounds like someone who is also tired of being a piece in someone else's arrangement. And that, I think, changes absolutely everything. Shinara and I end up in the same second-floor coffee corner where I sat with Sung-hoon 40 minutes ago. The beta barista looks at us both, looks at the lobby behind us, looks at the ceiling briefly like he is asking the universe a personal question, and then starts making 2 drinks without being asked. I like him more every time I see him. We sit across from each other at the small table. Up close, she is less intimidating and more tired. The kind of tired that lives behind careful makeup and perfect posture and has been there long enough to become structural. I'm going to say something directly, she begins. Oh, please, and I say, it has been that kind of morning. The corner of her mouth moves. Almost. I did not choose this arrangement. I want that said first. Okay, I say. My pack needed the alliance. My father needed the territory security. I am the eldest, and I have known since I was 19 that my bond match would be a pack decision and not a personal one. She wraps both hands around the cup the barista sets in front of her. I accepted that. I have always accepted that. But, I say, she looks at me steadily. But Hyunwoo came to my father 3 weeks ago and asked to dissolve the arrangement. The lobby goes quiet in my head. Every sound in the building drops away. 3 weeks ago, I repeat carefully. Before you came today, she confirms. Before he knew about the child, he came to my father and said the arrangement was not something he could honor with integrity and that continuing it would be unfair to me. I stare at her. My father refused, she says. The territorial stakes are too high. He refused and Hyunwoo left, and I thought that was the end of it. She pauses. And then this morning, my father called me and told me to come to the building, to establish presence, to remind Hyunwoo of his obligations. She says the word obligations, the way you say a word that has been used against you enough times to lose all its original meaning. You didn't want to come, I say. I came because I am trying to find a solution that does not destroy either of our lives, she says, and I think you are the same. I sit with that for a moment. Outside the coffee corner window, the hallway is empty. Somewhere in this building, Hyunwoo is dealing with whatever conversation her arrival triggered. Somewhere, Taeju is running calculations. Somewhere, Sung-hoon is possibly stress baking in a metaphorical sense. What solution? I ask. The territorial corridor, she says. That is what this is actually about. Not the bond, not the alliance ceremony. The corridor access rights. She leans forward slightly. If Kang Group secures the Bridgewater modification approval before the deadline, the open bid closes. The Shin Pack loses the legal grounds for the corridor petition, regardless of whether the alliance goes through. I look at her. You're saying if I complete this project, the territorial conflict resolves on its own, she says. My father loses his primary leverage. The arrangement becomes strategically unnecessary. She holds my gaze, and everyone gets to make their choices based on something other than a map. I breathe, long and slow and careful. Just you came here to tell me this, I say. I came here, she says, Because I have spent 2 years being managed and positioned and moved around like a solution to someone else's problem. And I decided this morning that I am done being quiet about it. She says it simply. No drama, no performance. And I recognize every single word. I reach across the table and pick up my decaf and take a sip and look at this woman who was supposed to be my antagonist and is somehow, improbably, one of the most honest person I have spoken to all day. The Bridgewater revision, I say. I'm going to need full city planning committee access and 10 uninterrupted days. I know someone on the committee, she says. I can make a call. Of course she can. I take the elevator back to 23. Hyunwoo is in his office alone. He is standing at the window, which is exactly where I told myself he would be. I looking out at the Portland skyline with his hands in his pockets and his shoulders carrying the particular weight of a man mid-reckoning. He hears me come in. He turns around. I reach into my bag and I take out the envelope. I cross the room and I hold it out to him. He looks at it, then at my face. Something moves through his expression, recognition, and something raw underneath it. She gave it to you, he says quietly. She did. He does not take it. Did you read it? No, I say. It was not mine to read. It was yours to say. His jaw moves. His eyes go bright in a way I have not seen before. He takes the envelope. He holds it for a moment. Then he sets it on the drafting table and looks at me with everything he has been trying to organize all morning finally settling into something clear and undefended and true. I tried to dissolve the arrangement, he says. I know, I tell him. 3 weeks ago. Before I knew. Before today. His voice is low and direct. Because I could not stop thinking about you. Because 6 months of telling myself it was a pact decision and it was necessary and I had done the correct thing and none of it was enough to make the correct thing feel like anything other than the worst choice I have ever made. I look at him. That is not an excuse, he says. For what I said, for how I said it. It does not fix what broke. I know that. It doesn't, I agree. But I need you to know, he says, in that walking away from you was never about what you were worth. It was about what I was afraid to cost my pack. And I have spent 6 months learning that some costs are worse than others. The rain against the window is steady and soft. I take 1 step toward him. He stays very still, like a man who has learned not to assume anything. Not even the distance closing between them. I am not forgiving everything today, I tell him, honest and clear. What broke between us is going to take time, and I need you to understand that. Real time. Not a conversation, not a gesture. Time. I understand, he says. And this child is still mine first, I say. That does not change. I know, he says. I don't want it to. But, I say, and I watch something in his face hold its breath. I am willing to find out who you are when you are not afraid. He exhales, like a man who has been holding that breath for 6 months. He crosses the last foot between us slowly, giving me every opportunity to step back. And when I do not, he reaches out and takes my hand. Both of his around one of mine. Warm and careful, and nothing like the cold, composed man who stood at this window 6 months ago and called me a pact decision. Jiwon, he says, just my name. No conditions attached. 2 weeks later, the Bridgewater modification is approved by the Portland City Planning Committee with 4 days to spare. The open bid closes. The Shin Pac's corridor petition loses its legal foundation. Shin Ara calls me the morning the approval comes through. She says 3 words, "Nice work, Jiwon." Then she hangs up. I decide we are friends. I do not think she would object. Taiju comes to find me at the drafting table on the last day and sets a coffee next to my elbow without a word. I look up at him. You engineered all of this, I say. I created conditions, he says carefully. You did the work. That is a very fine distinction. I find fine distinctions useful, he says. Insufferable. Completely insufferable. I almost like him. Soo-yoon calls that evening. She asks how I am feeling, whether I am eating enough, whether I have found a good doctor. She does not ask about Hyunwoo. She does not need to. She says good at the end of the call in the tone of a woman whose plan landed exactly where she aimed it. And Hyunwoo. He shows up at my apartment on a Tuesday night with 2 containers of sundubu jjigae from the Korean place 3 blocks from my old family home that I mentioned once, 4 months ago, in a conversation I did not think he was memorizing. He remembered. He stands at my door in a plain jacket with no armor and no performance and no pack politics between us and holds out the food like a question. I open the door wider. He comes in, and we sit at my small kitchen table and eat and talk, and somewhere in the middle of it, he reaches across and puts his hand over mine, and I let him. Just that. Just his hand over mine, and the rain outside and the warmth of a meal shared without an agenda. It is not perfect. We are not fixed. There are still words that need time and trust that needs building, and a future that neither of us can fully map yet. But his hand is warm over mine, and outside Portland is gray and alive and unhurried, and inside my chest something that has been braced for impact for 6 months finally. Quietly, let's go. He called me nothing once. Now he calls me by my name, like it is the most important word he knows. And for the first time since that parking garage on level 3, I believe him. He looks at me across the small table with rain on the windows and steam rising from the food between us and says quietly, I'm not going anywhere, Jiwon. Not this time. And I look back at him, this complicated, flawed, finally honest man, and I say, then stay. He does. Like, comment, subscribe, and click on the notification bell. Thanks for watching.